Thanks for listening to the Good Enough Wellness Podcast. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Emily.
And we're passionate about holistic wellness that real people with real lives can achieve.
We see you out there striving for perfection, but we want you to know that good enough can be good enough.
Before we get started, everything we talk about in this show is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. Always talk to your healthcare provider before making any changes to your diet, lifestyle, medication, or supplements.
So Emily, we were talking a little bit offline about our next segment. Last time we talked about what we were nerding out over this week, but we realized that neither one of us has been nerding out over anything this week.
No.
Because we're both kind of just in survival mode right now. So we thought we'd talk a little bit about that and what that is looking like for us.
Yeah, this was a weird week at our house. We started out strong and then fell on our faces. Spent some time at the ER with a child, and all's well, all will be fine. But for a little bit, all was not fine. And we had to readjust our expectations for the week for a lot of things, for our social schedules, for our school schedules, and my main focus then just became, making sure this child was good and also getting dinner on the table, because I think if you're able to, in survival mode, nutrition will really take you far in getting back out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about you? I know you sound a little bit stuffy today.
Yeah, if you notice my voice sounds a little different this week, it's because I ended up with a cold. I thought for sure it was going to be the big virus, but since
please don't say that, we're going to get censored.
Everyone in my husband's family had it, and I thought for sure I would end up with it, but an at-home test said negative, which, how much does that tell you really? But, and then on top of that, my mother-in-law brought me home 2 large boxes of tomatoes, and was like, here, do you want some tomatoes to can? And I was like, absolutely, but I feel like I can't even stay awake right now. So I ended up canning almost 25 quarts of tomatoes yesterday.
Oh, wow. I didn't know you got that many.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Tomato season waits for no man.
I know. And I guess something that we didn't really nerd out on but was really exciting that I did earlier in the week before I ended up sick, and maybe this was why I ended up getting sick, but I spent an entire morning setting up temporary electric fence for some of our cows.
Yay!
So we could start like rotational grazing. We're just kind of like testing some things right now and figuring out how it's going to work with our setup, because we have dairy cows, so they have to come in every morning and every evening to get milked.
Right.
So trying to figure out our logistics. We do have some that are dry or heifers. We also have a couple of Angus crosses. So like those ones can stay out, but just trying to figure out how this is going to fit into our farm setup. So yeah, that's kind of been our week, and just kind of going from day to day, doing as much / as little as possible.
Yeah, yes, because rest is key for survival mode.
Yep, I have been on the couch watching a lot more TV than I normally do.
Ooh, what are you watching?
Modern Family.
Oh, I haven't watched that yet.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. I enjoy it a lot. The family dynamics are really funny to me.
I'll add that to my list. I won't make it there for 20 years, but I'll add it to my list.
Yeah. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about a food decision funnel. And if you're not familiar with the food decision funnel, this is something that I have been thinking a lot about in the last couple years. And I created a graphic that I'll have a PDF of in the show notes for this episode.
Oh, I love me a graphic.
Yeah, so you could picture a funnel, and at the top of the funnel, the largest portion of the funnel.
Right, it's like an upside down pyramid.
Yep,
yeah.
It's labeled calories, and then the next section is macronutrients, the next is micronutrients, the next is freshness, and the last is quality. And when we're thinking about the food decision funnel, what we're thinking about is when I am making a decision about what food to eat, where am I in this funnel? For example, on a day when you're running late, you don't have anything in your fridge, your kid has gone to the ER,
Yep.
everything, the cards are stacked against you. You know, the thing that you're able to achieve are calories. And first and foremost, that is the most important part, is getting calories. You know, every 3 to 5 hours, we need calories. And sometimes those calories are great quality, sometimes they're poor quality, but end of the day, what we really need is calories.
Yeah,
That's
energy
what gives
first.
us energy, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're able to, now you've got the calories nailed down, the next thing you can look at within those calories, if you have the capacity to, are the macronutrients. So this is the ratio between protein, fat, and carbs. You know, this is going to be the next thing that's going to really make a difference in your health, is making sure that these ratios are optimized. So, you know, making sure you have at least a palm-sized portion of protein, and about a thumb-sized or 2 thumbs of fat, and then probably like a hand of carbohydrates. And then making sure, I mean, if it's possible, making sure that it's a mixture of like a leafy green or like a lighter carb like that, and then a starchy carb or a complex carb. That's kind of controversial, but I've noticed a huge difference in my health in focusing on both of those things. So a lot of times I'll make sure there's a starchy or like a heavier or complex carb with a fruit or a vegetable.
Mm-hmm.
That they provide like a quicker sugar source rather than like the more complex carb that'll stick around a little bit longer.
Right, it's almost like the concept of like one is kindling that'll catch right away, and then one is like a slower burning log in your fire.
Yeah, and you can even think of like carbs as a whole as kindling and fat as like a log.
Sure, yes.
Too, but yeah, definitely within carbs, those two are the same way. Like the simple carbohydrates are definitely like a quick paper
Mm-hmm.
in a fire, where complex carbs are more like twigs or a log.
Yeah.
So after you've had calories, and if you are able to optimize your macronutrients, the next thing you can start to look at are your micronutrients, and these are your vitamins and minerals and the nutrient density of those macronutrients and calories. So choosing foods that are nutrient dense, so this would be something like choosing like an oyster over a fish stick.
Okay. Yeah, so you're maybe even like viewing it as like choosing whole foods over like a more processed version. Choosing potatoes over like a bagged French fry, or choosing like a meat or like a cheese over a protein bar, or that sort of thing. So you're looking at more nutrient dense whole foods versus something that's maybe a little more convenient. Yeah, so looking at nutrient density, and you can download an app called Chronometer, and I like this one. It's like a macro or calorie counting app, but I like this one because there's a lot more emphasis on the micronutrients, and you can kind of see them really clearly whenever you log the food, and it can tell you like how nutrient dense your foods are whenever you track them. Yeah, I like that app too. If you were to choose to track your food, if that was a good fit for you, that's my favorite app too. It's so much better. It's really more about like meeting your minimums than it is about like, oh no, you ate too much fat. Oh no, your calories are over. It's like, hey, let's make sure we get enough vitamin C today, shall we? Yeah. So the next in the funnel is freshness. And it can be hard to think about freshness as a priority sometimes. But when we consider that once a food has been picked, this is primarily for like a fruit or a vegetable, but once a food has been picked, the micronutrient quality starts to go down. That's not to say that something that's been picked a long time ago is devoid of nutrients. Sure.
It's not that they completely disappear over time. It's just that it does start to decline. And so if you have the capability to find a fresh source, then that can be really helpful in boosting your nutrient density.
Right. So you could even swap the word freshness for local.
Yeah, absolutely. I think local is a great option. We don't really think about foods from the grocery store as being not from here because they seem like they're from here because they're in your grocery store.
Right. And they seem fresh because we have like all these tricks now to keep things being fresh, like waxed apples and refrigeration and everything.
Yeah.
I wish we had done our research here, because I know I've seen the numbers of like an apple at the grocery store is this many days old, a tomato at the grocery store is this many days old. It's like, it's unreal.
Yeah.
I know I've heard before that like eggs at the grocery store can be like 6 weeks old.
Yep.
Which is fine. They're still like, it's not that they're bad. It's just, you could probably, I bet, if you look around everybody's backyard chickens, look for an fresh egg sign by the side of the road, and they're probably still warm.
Yes.
They probably just came out of a chicken's butt.
Yes, and food that comes from a local area is also going to have certain compounds in it, like nutrient compounds, that your body has adjusted to from living in that same area.
Oh, that's fascinating. Like, it works with your gut better than something that's from a completely different area or country.
It might be the same product. It might be like an apple.
Yeah.
You know, an apple from your backyard or an apple from Washington State. But the apple from your backyard is not only going to have more nutrients because it'll be fresher, but it also is going to have more localized, like, bacteria, I guess.
Right, yeah. That makes perfect sense. I hadn't really thought about it in quite that term, but that makes absolute sense. It's very much along the same lines as like we will always advocate for local honey over like whatever organic free range. I don't know what are they labels they slap on honey to make it like seem so good that you can get online or at the grocery store. Like, if you find local honey, it's going to have all the pollen and like the biodiversity of your area. So if you're looking at honey to be, you know, not just a food, but like a supplement, like an addition to your health, like local is the way to go because it has all the things that you need for your area. Yeah,
absolutely. And that applies to other foods, including meat. You know, like the food your food eats, so the grass that your beef is eating is also like localized to your area.
That's really cool. I didn't expect to have a shift here mentally, but I am, and this is actually really cool.
Yeah. And then after that, this kind of just piggybacks right off of it. If you have the capacity, you look at quality then after that. And so this is like looking at labels such as organic or pasture raised or free range or like local, things like that. And these things are important, but a lot of times we don't have the capacity to always pick these things that are in the narrowest part of the funnel. And that's okay. You know, you can go up and down this funnel however you need at different stages, different meals, different times of your life, and that's okay.
Yeah, it's gonna look different for everybody too, like their capacity for the quality they choose based on their, you know, how old their kids are and if they're sleeping through the night and how they're getting paid and what's available to them, especially like sometimes we can't find all these things locally and fresh, and that's okay too. We're just looking for what's your best effort.
Yeah. So I'm going to take a few minutes and talk about some of the labels that you'll find on your food. And we'll start with organic because I think that can be kind of confusing. And certified organic does go through a certification process. It's not as rigorous as some people might think.
It's weirdly rigorous in interesting areas, I feel. Like, I'll let you continue, but I do know that when friends of ours were looking to get certified organic, like, it mattered what kind of fence posts they were using and how long they were using them.
That is bizarre.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
But then I know you're probably about to talk about the things that's not included in organic that's like, it really feels like that should be important to
Right.
organic. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so they are allowed to still use like fertilizers and pesticides and herbicides and fungicides as long as those products are also organic. But it doesn't always mean that they are like an all natural compound. It just means that they were certified organic. So, and certified organic means it's only like a certain percentage of it has to be organic as well. Like, it
Oh,
doesn't have to be
interesting.
100% organic even to be certified organic. That's not to say that organic is garbage and shouldn't be trusted, but just be aware that just because something says organic doesn't necessarily mean better.
Right.
And there are some instances where organic is better, and that would be the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. So if you go to the Environmental Working Group's website, I think it's ewg.org,
I think so, yes.
and they have lists of produce. The one is called the Clean 15 and one is called the Dirty Dozen. They get updated regularly, and it tells you, they test different items of produce and tell you which has the highest amount of like chemicals still on it from the processing, and which ones you would be best to buy organic and which ones that are fine to buy conventionally raised. And this is a really helpful tool because if you're on a budget and you don't want to buy everything organic, or you aren't able to buy anything organic, now you know which foods to focus on, and you can like look at that Clean 15 list and say, I'm going to focus on a lot of things on this Clean 15 list because these are the things that I know are going to be better for us, but also aren't going to cost a lot extra due to the fact that they are organic.
Yeah, I don't think I really viewed it this way until you were talking about it one day. Like, I used to view it as like, if I want to buy strawberries are always on the Dirty Dozen. If I want to eat strawberries, I gotta always buy them organic, and like, I can't afford that. Like, that's just not anywhere near my budget. So like, the Clean 15 Dirty Dozen list was very stressful to me. But then the one day you were like, well, that just means you can just focus on mostly eating the Clean 15. And then if you have something from the Dirty Dozen, it's not like it makes up your whole diet. It's not like you eat it every day. It's more of like a sometimes choice. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's a lot less stressful than being like, if you want to eat strawberries, I hope you have $12 for a quart of them because
Right.
they're crazy expensive. It's like, no, we're going to eat this knowing that like, hey, we've been eating this stuff over here that's clean.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to stress so much about like getting this one thing that's considered like pretty dirty.
Right. Then when you look at meat, you'll start to see some labels like pasture raised, grass fed, or grass finished, or free range. So I just wanted to take a minute to talk about what some of those labels could mean. And when we see grass fed, that just means that the animal was fed primarily grass. But a lot of times in the last 6 weeks of the animal's life, then they'll start to supplement with a grain to help fatten the animal up, get nice marbling in the meat, and just kind of make the meat a higher quality, I guess.
Right. From a culinary standpoint,
Right.
it's arguably tastier. Like,
Yes.
it's not, it makes a mostly grass-fed product not gamey. It does create marbling. It's like, in my opinion, if you're going to compromise somewhere, like, that's going to give you just a tastier product that's
Yeah.
easier to cook long term.
Yeah, I'm like, it's a higher quality meat,
Right.
but I mean, to some people that would not be as high quality of a meat, but I mean, I wouldn't want, I mean, anyone who's had venison
Yeah.
knows that an animal that's only eaten grass can be a little bit tough.
Yes.
or a little bit dry, lean.
And that might be where you decide to make it a priority to eat that, and that's okay too. There's no wrong answer here, I think is what we're saying.
Yeah, I just want you to I want to help you understand some of the labels that are floating around out there, because some of them can be really eye-catching. Oh, that seems like a great idea.
Misleading.
Yes. And then, so if you're looking for an animal that has been grass-fed and finished, that would be an animal that's fed only grass the whole time, all the way through up to butchering. There's something called pasture-raised. That is also usually animals that are out on pasture. These ones aren't regulated, so you're kind of just depending on someone's honesty.
Yeah, you gotta take their word for it, maybe see their operation.
And a lot of times with things like pasture raised or free range, especially in poultry, they're only required to give them access to the outdoors, and they're not they're not actually being raised out on grass or pasture. They're just opening a door in the hen house, and a lot of these animals are so sick or so like their legs are broken or not able to sustain their weight because they're growing so rapidly that they're not actually going out. And I mean, you can go on YouTube and find all the busted videos of people going to these operations and like people bragging about, we opened the door for 4 hours today, so technically they are free range or cage free or all this stuff. It's pretty skeezy.
The poultry industry is not great
here
in the U.S.
Yeah, so just be wary when you see phrases like cage-free or free-range or pasture-raised, because it might not be what it seems like it would be. And that kind of leads us into some of the questions that I will ask if I'm trying to make some of these decisions for myself. And that's, do I know the farmer and know that they don't use these practices or pesticides or anything like that, even though they aren't like certified something? So a lot of local farmers won't get certified in something because of the barrier to entry. It costs a lot of money to switch everything over. It costs a lot of time. There's a lot of red tape. It's a pain in the butt to get certified for things through the government.
And when you have to go through all those steps, all the years, all the time, all the fees that you're paying, you have to have that reflected in your prices. Like it's organic is more expensive, and I think people like to say that like, oh, they can like charge a premium. It's like, no, they have to pay so much every year, every few years to get and stay certified that like you as the consumer are going to have to pay for it.
Right. And it's worth it a lot of times. I mean, you might not be able to afford it, but that doesn't mean it's not worth it.
Right.
So I go to some local farm stands or whatever, and I just strike up a conversation. I say, do you know if they use pesticides on this crop? And a lot of times they're very eager to talk about it, especially if they don't use pesticides.
Yeah. If they do, sometimes you get the cold shoulder. But
Right. But, that's just, like, some information then. Like, or you can go to a local butcher and say, how long has this animal been grazing? Or, if you go to get some chickens, you can say, like, are they raised out on pasture? Tell me about how these chickens were raised. Or even things like milk. If you have like a raw milk pickup, if the farmer doesn't want you coming to their farm, I'm not saying that they're bad farmers or that they're, they have terrible practices, but chances are they're not proud of something, and it could be a red flag. I would still strike up a conversation with those people and say, what do you feed your cows? Are they going outside? What do you wash your equipment with? Those kinds of questions, like how do you clean the udders before you milk? Because that can give you some really important clues as to their practices in other places as well. Most farmers are more than happy to talk to you about what they do. They do it for a reason. farmers love what they do for the most part.
Yeah, you have to be crazy to farm, so you have to love what you
Yes.
do. And here's a secret about farmers. They don't get out much, so they love to talk to
Yes.
you. They want to tell you all
Yeah.
about what they do and why they do it.
Yeah, and most of them are really proud of what they do, and so they will be happy to tell you about what they do. And chances are, if they are going through the effort to put out a raw milk share, if they are setting up a farm stand, if they are selling shares of meat, they have an interest.
Yeah, they're probably passionate about it. Nobody gets
Yes.
into farming for the money, so they have to be driven by something, and it's probably passion.
Yeah. Another question I like to ask myself is, what is my toxin load in other areas? So, what is my laundry detergent? Well, what am I using for personal care? What's the quality of my water? Because these kinds of things all contribute to a toxin load, and may require that I have a better quality food in order to offset that. So if I can't afford better food, can I afford better personal care products? Can I afford better laundry detergent? Can I afford to put a filter on my water? Those things help to decrease the toxin load overall, so that way I have a little more wiggle room when it comes to the food.
Yeah, this is an area that I really like to focus on because it feels a lot more in my reach, a lot more practical, and it saves me money, so it feels like accessible to
Yeah.
be making my own cleaning products and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And then the third question I will ask myself is, what is my budget? And this applies to both time and money. If I don't have a lot of money to spend, I can only focus on calories or macronutrients and maybe a little bit of micronutrients, and that's okay. Because like we talked about, that's the most important part of the funnel. Like, no matter what, at the end of the day, you need calories.
Yeah, I'm glad we circled back to this because we just spent a lot of time talking about like kind of the nitty gritty of like quality and talking to your farmer, which are all great things, but like let's not forget the most important thing, which is like feed yourself.
Yeah.
If you are strapped for cash, buy the ground beef from Aldi and call it a day. Like, it's okay, and feeding yourself well is going to be what you need to get you out of whatever kind of survival mode you're in to be able to go focus on those other things eventually.
Yeah. And I think it's important to also recognize time when we talk about budget. Some of us have more time than others. That's just a matter of fact. Like, some of us have lots of time to be focused on food and personal care products and reducing toxin load, and some people don't have that much time. And I think it's important to understand and recognize that if you don't have a lot of time, it's okay to make a different decision than someone else would when it comes to the quality of your food.
Yeah, I don't think this would be a good enough wellness podcast episode without us saying, like, stress is not your friend. If you're going to stress about this stuff, then you need to back off a little bit on your funnel. If trying to find every single farm stand and local farm and raw milk is stressing you out, then that is not the time for you to be doing those things.
Yeah. There are some really great freezer meal options if you don't have a lot of time but you have more money. There's more and more companies making freezer meals or like HelloFresh kind of boxes that are, focused on pasture raised and free range and organic products.
Yeah.
And those can be great options if what you have is money and not time.
Yes.
And if you have neither, there are still great
Then
options.
We should chat because I don't have a lot of either.
Yeah, you should find somebody who can give you those tips and tricks, and there might be an episode coming about that.
I was just thinking that. I was like, I could teach you guys some things.
Yeah, for sure. And then the fourth question I ask myself when I'm trying to make a decision about what food to pick based on my funnel are what are my health goals? Do I need to focus on more protein, more vegetables, more fruits, more antioxidants, healthier fats, and trying to pick a food that gets you closer to your goal can really help you decide where you pick the highest quality food.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like if you know you need more protein in your life, then maybe you focus on finding a great source of grass-fed and finished beef. Or if I know that I need more antioxidants, it might be better for me to focus on saving my money and buying the organic blueberries every week because I know I need the antioxidants. If I know I need a healthier fat in my life, I buy one really nice bottle of great olive oil instead of buying a cheaper one because I have, a bottle of tallow or lard at home, you know?
And sometimes that can also look like saying like, oh, I'm not eating enough protein. So you go, okay, instead of my $20 buying a pound of grass-fed, grass-finished beef, you go, no, I'm going to go buy 5 pounds of beef at Aldi. Sometimes it has to look like that, and that's okay too.
Yes, that's definitely another way that can look is if I need more of this, then I have to back off on the quality.
Yeah, because again, you start at that top and go, I need calories and I need macros before I ever get into the nitty-gritty.
So if you're struggling to make a decision about your food, this funnel can be really helpful to take a look at, am I getting the calories that I need? And then if you are, am I getting the macronutrients that I need? And then if you are, going, am I getting the micronutrients that I need? And then from there, kind of assessing time, budget, resources, connections even. Like, do you know somebody that can get you a hookup here or hookup there? And then
I'm convinced everybody has, like no matter who you are, you have a connection to something. Like,
yeah.
I have a great connection to raw milk. And maybe you don't, you do. Maybe you listening don't, but like your neighbor's aunt grows so many tomatoes every year and she's just looking to get rid of them. I think everybody has these connections if you just kind of look around and don't get caught up in being jealous of other people's connections. Make sure you're looking for your own.
Yeah. And just work down that funnel, and one item might be in a different area than another. So you might have to pick non-organic, conventionally raised blueberries, but you can pick all organic, pasture raised chicken. And just because one thing is in one area doesn't mean everything has to be in that area. And the more we can get things further down in the funnel, like higher quality or whatever, but it might not be more accessible and might cause you more stress. And that also is important, as we've talked about in many episodes before. Stress is going to erase some of the benefits of the higher quality foods.
Yes, 100%. So, in case you missed it, here's the TLDR on the food decision funnel. First, calories. Second, macronutrients. Third, micronutrients. Fourth, freshness or local. Fifth, quality.
And here are the decision-making questions to ask yourself. Do I know the farmer and know the practices they use? What is my toxin load in other areas? What is my budget? What are my health goals?
So, Kayla, what's good this week?
What's good this week is Jesus.
Yeah. Preach,
I
girl.
mean, he's good every week, but this week I was having a bad day. As I've shared on some other episodes, I have been working toward getting my fertility back, post-hormonal birth control, so working on getting my cycles regulated, and I feel like I am 2 steps forward, 1 step back the entire way. It honestly feels like a fight sometimes, and I've been pretty committed to praying about it and just giving it over, but it can be really tough in the day-to-day of, where is my period? And so I was having a pretty rough day about it, and I starting to feel kind of desperate, which I haven't really felt before. Like, I felt a lot of like joy and peace about it, and just like, it'll come when it'll come, and I know I'm doing the right things, but I was starting to not feel that way, and starting to really feel like, why isn't this happening? I need to do something else. I need to try crazy programs or crazy supplements. You know, this person said that they had great success with the, you know, mother womb fertility, you know, this, that, or the other thing. And I'm like, well, maybe I need to try that. And just kind of getting that kind of desperate feeling. And so the first thing I did was delete Instagram off of my phone, because wouldn't you know it, that's where a lot of that stuff comes from.
That is a perfect first step to solving all your problems.
And then I went into my room and put my headphones in and put on Honey in the Rock, which is like my favorite worship song.
Yeah. Are you crying? I'd be crying at this point.
Yes. So I was crying, and then I did a tapping session on YouTube, and it was called Tapping for Infertility.
Yeah.
And by the end of that, I was like, I feel so much better, and I did it again the next day, because I was like, I need to solidify this, and then I was sick after that. But so I was like, I did not have the energy to think about my fertility right now, so
this could be so much worse if I had a baby.
Well, yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I don't have a baby right now. No, I wasn't really thinking that.
Yes,
but,
no.
But yeah, Jesus is so good, and I'm really glad I had that opportunity to give it up again.
Good for you.
So, Emily, what was good for you this week?
Well, I should have gone first, because mine is English muffins.
That is really great, too.
Before my fourth child was born, I had gotten into making sourdough, and like everything was sourdough all the time, and it was awesome. And then I think I mentioned before, I really hit burnout when I was pregnant with her, and I let go of a lot of things. It was very humbling and probably good for my my development as a person, but a lot of other things suffered. But all that to say, I'm back into sourdough, and I'm super excited about it, and I was scouring the interwebs for this one recipe I used to use all the time. This was like my daily ride or die sourdough, and I finally found it. So if you need a good, so easy English muffin recipe, you want to go to Farmhouse on Boone. They're English muffins, and if you don't follow Farmhouse on Boone anyways, she's fantastic. She's got like a bunch of kids, and she makes life look easy, but not in an unrealistic way, if that makes sense. But yeah, we use these English muffins for everything. Obviously, as English muffins, as sandwich buns, they kind of almost have this like chewy, pretzel-y type texture. Highly recommend. So yeah, Jesus and English muffins, that's what's good over here.
I mean, I'm down for Jesus and English muffins any day.
I love it. Thank you for listening to the Good Enough Wellness Podcast.
To learn more about my one-on-one packages, join my mailing list and follow me on Instagram at Kayla King Wellness.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Good Enough Wellness Podcast feed wherever you listen to podcasts. You won't want to miss an episode.
Join our community over on Instagram at Good Enough Wellness Podcast to learn about upcoming episodes and to interact with the Good Enough community.
The Good Enough Wellness Podcast, because good enough can be good enough.
Well, that's good enough for me.
Me too.